Thank you so much. I've got my badge right here. Good morning, and welcome to the First Unitarian Society of Madison. This is a community where curious seekers gather to explore spiritual, ethical, and social issues in an accepting and nurturing environment. Unitarian Universalism supports the freedom of conscience of each individual, as together we seek to be a force for good in the world. My name is Elizabeth Barrett, and on behalf of the congregation, I would like to extend a special welcome to visitors. We are a welcoming congregation, so whoever you are and wherever you are on your life's journey, we celebrate your presence among us. We gather together out of the routines of our week to give pause, to take a deep breath, to listen with our hearts. We give thanks for this extraordinary blessing. Here may our minds stretch, our hearts open, and our spirits deepen. We are so very glad that you are here. I invite you to join me now in a few moments of silence, meditation, or prayer as we settle in and come fully into this time and place together. Please rise in body or spirit for our ingathering hymn, number 298.
Good morning. Verses 4 and 5 are on the facing page.
Wake now my senses and hear the earth call. Feel the deep power of being in all. Keep with the web of creation your vow, giving, receiving as love shows us how. Wake now my reason, reach out to the new. Join with each pilgrim who quests for the true. Honor the beauty and wisdom of time. Suffer thy limit and praise the sublime. Wake now, compassion, give heed to the cry. Voices of suffering fill the wide sky. Take as your neighbor both stranger and friend, praying and striving their hardship to end. Wake now my conscience, with justice thy guide. Join with all people whose rights are denied. Take not for granted a privileged place. God's love embraces the whole human race. Wake now my vision of ministry clear. Brighten my pathway with radiance here. Mingle my calling with all who will share. Work toward a planet transformed by our care.
Please remain standing for our opening words and the lighting of our chalice. Between rocking the boat and sitting down, between stirring things up and peaceably going along, we find ourselves here in community. Each called for many different journeys, many different life paths onto this river road. Some are here because the rocking of the boat has been too much. Too much change, too much uncertainty, too much pain. Some are here with questions about where the boat is going, how best to steer it, where this journey ends. Others are here as lovers of the journey, lovers of life itself. Here, each a passenger, each a captain, doing the best we can. Rest here in your boat with me, the river calls. Listen to how I flow, the sound of life coursing all around you. Let the current hold you, let the current guide you. The river that gently flows through your soul as it whispers, "Come, let us worship." And if you will join together in our affirmation as we light our chalice. In these times, let us look first to the response of love. In the midst of challenge, may our chalice flame bear witness to the inherent worth and dignity of every human being. In the midst of uncertainty, may our chalice be a beacon of encouragement, that our values may guide our choices. Let us look first to the response of love. And if you will take a moment now to turn and greet those around you. If you arrived here today with a sorrow so heavy that you need the help of this community to carry it, or if you came with a joy so great that it simply must be shared, now is that time. The sharing of joys and sorrows is our time in the spirit of acceptance and support to share with one another some special event or circumstance that has affected your life or the life of a loved one in recent days or weeks. So for the next few minutes, anyone who wishes is invited to step to the front of the auditorium, lighting a candle and using the microphone provided by Anne, our lay minister. Briefly share with us your message. You may also come forward to wordlessly light a candle. And if you're unable to come forward for any reason, please just raise your hand and Anne will bring the microphone to you. And if you will light our first candle, in recognition of all that is happening in our country this past week and this coming week. In honor of all those among us who have been wounded by violence. Many are suffering and grieving with reopened wounds of past hurts. On this day, we pray they receive support and healing, that voices are heard, stories acknowledged, experiences validated. To those who have been dismissed, turned away, or ignored, we are sorry. May we remember the effects of trauma are real and long-lasting. May we recognize all of us who are impacted by a culture of violence. By listening to one another, may we become instruments of love, of healing, of justice, and of peace. And I now open our time for the sharing of your sorrows and your joys.
I just wanted to share the extreme joy that I feel having all the choir here, and pride and joy at having my two girls in choir together.
Hi, I'm Catherine Ramsey, and this is my husband, Tom Ball. I came here in 1984 and joined the congregation and sang in the church choir for 9 years. And there are many people here that I knew, but I might not recognize you, so please come say hello. We have loved being here this weekend and had reunions with friends from our graduate student years, and checking in with people, and everyone's pulling out their cell phones and sharing pictures of their kids, none of which was possible back when we were here. So happy to be here.
Welcome back.
Hello, my name is Phoebe, and this summer I got diagnosed with a grade 3 brain tumor. And I have a joy that this summer has been a really good summer, and I'm on round 2 of maintenance coming up. So I'm really glad that I've been handling this so well.
Son, and Ann Reifenberg is my partner of many, many years. She is struggling right now with a very bad disease, and she's in quite a bit of pain, but she's getting around because she's a tough one in a good way, really. So, but my thoughts and prayers are with her and hopefully with you.
Hi, I'm Paulo Flanagan, and I have a friend who fell 40 feet from a crane last week on his face. I have a joy that he's alive and a sorrow that he's having trouble adapting to the fact that he might be blind in one eye and might not be able to work again. So whether or not you believe in prayer, if you could drop a prayer for him, I'm sure he'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jackie Regenbogen, and I'm very happy to be here today. As many of you know, on February 1st, I was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer, and it's been an incredibly long road. A lot of you saw me bald and struggling with a walker through chemo for 5 months and then 2 surgeries. But this Thursday, I have my last radiation treatment, and I'm so grateful that I've made it this far in life, and I'm very hopeful that I won't have recurrence, and I want to thank this community for helping me be strong, me and Dawn, my beautiful spouse over there. So I just want to say it's a great joy to be here. Thank you.
I want to light a candle for me, my sisters, and all the people who identify as girls and women who have really been struggling these last weeks with trauma and wishing for a better world.
Hi, I'm lighting this candle for Rosario Spella. He was 98 years old, my ex-husband Chris's grandfather, and my grandfather in my heart. He passed away a couple weeks ago peacefully, surrounded by his family. He was very loved.
This candle is for hope. My name is Lori Schwartz, and 2 years ago I started volunteering at an elementary school here in Madison, and I was 30 years as a police officer, and eventually I started protecting my heart by holding it close. But what I see and what I know is that healing is possible, and I see it in the children on the playground. And I see it in, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. It does make a difference. And I didn't think that was possible after watching 30 years of anger and hatred and screaming and megaphones on each side of my ears with people protesting and people hurting each other and people doing unimaginable things. And in my own life, I believe in healing, because children are leading the way. It's possible. It does make a difference.
And Anne, if you will light one last candle for all the joys and all the sorrows, too tender to share, that live in the fullness of our hearts. And now we have one more gift of music from our choir, and when they are done singing, our children and teachers may leave for classes. Our first reading is from Jonathan Chapman. Recently, he says, I ordered 4-foot-tall rainbow bunnies for my congregation. It seemed like a good idea at the time. Just after I hit order, I wondered if we really needed them. Later that day, one of my parishioners sent me a picture taken in front of a local church. On the lawn was an enormous banner with a picture of the Holy Family and the message, God's marriage equals one man plus one woman. Often people ask me why my congregation constantly hangs banners or bunnies welcoming folks. They wonder why we're always lugging out our rainbows. This is why. Because you see, every church says everyone is welcome, but many of them make that conditional. You're welcome, but not your relationship, or who you love, or how you look, or how you think, or how you believe. Most churches don't put out banners like the one I saw, but many aren't far off from sharing the same sentiment. Listen, people can think what they want and believe what they want. I don't have to agree with everyone, and they don't have to agree with me. But as long as there are a congregation willing to limit God's welcome, ours will work harder to widen it. And as long as there are churchgoers who question the depth of love, we will keep hoisting our banners and hauling open our doors that proclaim its breadth. The truth is that we will fall short, and we do, but we keep trying. Because you see, there are people in the world who wonder if they really could be loved, if God could love them despite who they are. And in case that's you, yes, there's no despite about it. God could love you, God does love you, and so do we. And our second poem, written by Richard Gilbert, it was based off of these words from E.B. White. It's hard to know when to respond to the seductiveness of the world and when to respond to its challenge. If the world were merely seductive, that would be easy. If it were merely challenging, that would be no problem. But I arise in the morning torn between the desire to improve the world and a desire to enjoy it. This makes it hard to plan the day. So Richard Gilbert writes, I rise in the morning torn between the desire to save the world or to savor it, to serve life or to enjoy it, to savor the sweet taste of my own joy or to share the bitter cup of my neighbor, to celebrate life with exuberant step or to struggle for the life of the heavy laden. What am I to do when the guilt at my bounty clouds the sky of my vision? When the glow which lights my every day illumines the hurting world around me? To savor the world or save it? God of justice, if such there be, take from me the burden of my question. Let me cast from my eyes all troubled folk. No, you will not let me be. You will not stop my ears to the cries of the hurt. You will not close my eyes to the sight of the afflicted. What is that you say? To save, one must serve. To savor, one must save. The one will not stand without the other. Forgive me. In my preoccupation with myself and my concern for my own life, I had forgotten. Forgive me, God of justice. Forgive me and make me whole. And I invite you to rise in body or spirit for our next hymn, number 95.
There is more love somewhere. There is more love somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more love somewhere.
There is more hope.
There is more hope somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. And I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more hope somewhere.
There is more peace somewhere.
There is more peace somewhere. There is more peace somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more peace somewhere.
There's more joy.
There is more joy somewhere. There is more joy. There is more joy somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more joy somewhere.
Please be seated. On this day, 248 years ago, a miracle occurred. Perhaps our only Unitarian Universalist miracle, perhaps not, but it's the one that I know and like to tell. And that's the story of John Murray. As a child, Murray was raised by a strict Calvinist father who taught John that God was a power to be feared and a power to obey. As he grew, John began to question these beliefs, coming into contact first with the Methodists and then with a preacher by the name of James Relly, who was preaching this doctrine known as universal salvation. Now, by this time, a young man, Murray had an excellent life. He had a steady job, a wife he loved, a young son. He had everything that he dreamed life could be. And then in an instant, everything changed. First, his young son passed away, and then his wife was ill, so Murray moved her to the country, hiring nurses and renting a cottage for them to live in, but his efforts were not enough, and his young wife died. John Murray was left heartbroken and debt-ridden. Now, before these losses, he was gaining a reputation as a formidable preacher. So James Relly encouraged him to join him in preaching this universal salvation. But John Murray decided instead that he was going to live out his remaining years in solitude in a new world. He had heard these stories of America's independent spirit and plentiful resources. So with no connections and no plans, he boarded a ship called the Hand in Hand, bound for New York and a new life. But before reaching their destination, fog blew in, and the Hand in Hand ran aground on a sandbar off of the New Jersey coast. John Murray volunteered to go ashore to get provisions for the crew, and by chance he encounters an elderly man named Thomas Potter. Thomas Potter gives John food for everyone on the ship and invites him to return for dinner that evening. Now, Thomas Potter was a farmer who worked a small plot of land, and he spent a great deal of time contemplating the nature of things. Thomas Potter thought long and hard about the nature of life, the afterlife, humanity, the divine. And he looked for preachers with whom he could have discussions. In fact, he built a small chapel, a meeting house, so that he could invite itinerant preachers in, preachers of all kinds, to give sermons every Sunday. Now, in his conversations, he became intrigued by this somewhat strange emerging movement called Universalism, a movement that claimed all souls would return to God, that there was no everlasting punishment after death. So Potter waited for such a preacher to arrive. Now, when John Murray returns for dinner, Thomas Potter shows him his chapel. He tells him that many preachers had been through the doors, but he was waiting for one that preached universal salvation. There was no doubt in Thomas Potter's mind that God had sent John Murray's ship aground right there off the coast of New Jersey for just this purpose. He urges John Murray to preach, but Murray refuses, saying that he was determined to leave that past life behind. He was never going to preach again. He was going to New York as planned. And here's where the miracle occurred. Thomas Potter asks Murray to preach in the chapel that coming Sunday, and Murray says, "I cannot, sir, because as soon as the wind changes, my boat will set sail and I must be on it." And Potter replies, "The wind will never change, sir, until you have delivered to us in my meeting house a message from God." So guess what happens? The wind remains calm for days, all the way up until Sunday, September 30th, 1770, when John Murray preached the first known Universalist sermon on American soil in a meeting house that Thomas Potter built. The story goes that just after Murray concluded his sermon, a sailor ran up to inform him that the wind had changed. The ship was free, and they could now leave for New York. Murray felt his sense of calling and purpose return, and he goes on to spread the message of the kindness and the everlasting love of God up and down the East Coast. Hallelujah! Founding the first Universalist church in Gloucester, Massachusetts, and creating the roots of one part of our Unitarian Universalist faith today. Now, for us 248 years later, this may appear to be merely a lovely story from our history, one that makes a really fine message for all ages, and one that's fun to tell because we have our own miracle. But we have to remember what a radical message this was. Universalists were Christians who believed in universal salvation, rejecting both the notion of a fiery hell and also a wrathful God that would send anyone there in the first place. They believed that God was good, loving, patient, and forgiving. It was a shocking message. If you were found to be a Universalist, you could not sit on a jury in a court of law, because how could you possibly judge morality if you believed in forgiveness rather than punishment? There's a story told of another prominent Universalist, Hosea Ballou, where a man approached him and said, "Brother Ballou, if I were a Universalist and feared not the fires of hell, I could hit you over the head, steal your horse and your saddle, ride away, and I would still go to heaven." And Ballou looked at him and said, "If you were a Universalist, sir, the idea would never come to you." This statement tells us a great deal about the thinking of the time. The communal ideals of Puritanism were waning, and society was becoming increasingly focused on the individual. A religion based on retribution and punishment was needed to keep people in line. If there was no fear of an eternal reckoning, why on earth would anyone be good? The historian Anne Lee Bressler writes of the time, "There was a loss of community being caused by the shattering of religious life, the increasing complexity of economic relationships, and the influence of the market, population growth, and migration." Universalists saw a growing and deeply concerning emphasis on personal salvation, a narrow view that excluded genuine concern for one's neighbors. They believed that faith had deteriorated and become contracted and selfish. For Universalists, conversion was not about a private experience of God, but an understanding of salvation as social and communal. This declaration of love for all people led Universalists to be early social reformers, and by the early 1900s, they were arguing that the hell we must concern ourselves with had nothing to do with an afterlife, but the real human-created hell we were living in right here, right now. They argued then, I believe they would still argue it today, that hell comes in any form of an unjust, oppressive, fear-filled social and economic system that gives much to a very few and nothing to a great number. The Universalist Clarence Skinner said, "Our idea of God is that of an immanent spirit whose only nature is love." It was this sense of loving all, here and now, no exceptions, that drew me toward Unitarian Universalism 20 years ago and keeps me here today. The first UU congregation I ever walked into in Louisville, Kentucky, had this huge banner in the lobby that read, "Welcome to a life-affirming, not death-defying faith." I was really confused. So when I met with their minister, Elwood Sturdivant, I immediately said, "So can you tell me what this is about?" And he said, "Here we are not trying to save anyone from eternal damnation. Our focus is not on what happens after death. Our focus is on saving people from the hells that can be here and now, and telling everyone that here you are welcomed, you are affirmed, and you are loved." My colleague Joanna Crawford came up with this fabulous phrase, "Love the hell out of this world." Many have claimed it as their elevator speech, why they are here, a personal mission statement and a core theological statement. It is catchy. You can't help but smile when someone says, "So what's Unitarian Universalism?" And you say, "Oh, we're the people who love the hell out of this world." You can't help but smile. And it can mean different things. I like to think that John Murray, someone who would say, "Give them not hell, but hope," would really appreciate it. So one way to look at this modern view of universalism is that we are going to love this world and everyone in it a lot. This is the savoring part of our reading from Richard Gilbert. "In the morning I rise and am torn between the desire to savor the world or to save it." When we love the world in this way, we are in awe over the miracles of the everyday, of all the forces that had to align to create our very existence, that we are made of the stars, that we can find love and beauty and meaning. When we love the world in this way, everything and everyone in it is holy. Now, another way to look at her saying is the saving part. We can easily look around us and see people that are living in a kind of hell day in and day out. The fear and anxiety experienced by those who've always been seen as expendable, not valued, imprisoned in poverty or oppression. Loving this world broken and flawed means driving out hate with love, working with others to create beloved community here and now, working for a world in which all are respected with access to opportunity, justice, and life. When Joanna says that we are the people who will love the hell out of this world, she's calling on our Universalist foundation that told us that God loves each of us and we need to treat each other accordingly. If we are indeed connected in mystery and miracle to one another and this great web of life we share, then no one can be free of suffering if others are oppressed. UU Minister Josh Powlick writes that today, our Universalist theology manifests as a life-saving, life-giving, life-enhancing religious response to all those theologies that drive arbitrary wedges between people, that seek to frighten people into faith, and that teach people of their inherent sinfulness rather than their beauty, worth, and potential. Much of the pain in our world today comes from dividing ourselves up into tribes, into groups, to separate ourselves one from another, attaching labels to make it clear into which group we belong. The walls we create make it difficult to do the work of this life. The Sufi poet Hafiz said, "Out of a great need, we are all holding hands and climbing. Not loving is a letting go. Listen, the terrain around here is far too dangerous for that." The terrain around here is indeed far too dangerous for that, for not loving, not hanging on, hanging in together. So we move out of our areas of comfort to hold on to one another and hang on. Loving the hell out of this world is no easy task, yet it is so worth it, and it can only spread. Reverend Mark Morrison Reed reminded us that in being loved, we learn to love. Those who are loved will in turn love others. Those who feel God's infinite love within themselves will feel so good about themselves, so connected to life, so full of compassion that they will not be able to help but spread that love. They will overflow with it. We can be that force of love that our Universalist forebears spoke of, the ones to create a heaven on earth for all people and all creatures, building community, speaking our truth, changing the world. We are called to savor the world and to save it, to bring hope to the hurting, to listen to those in pain, comfort those who mourn, celebrate the ones who have found their strength. Loving this world means being in relationship with it, hanging on to all of it, not with division or walls, but in recognition of the one life we share. Our world is indeed an overwhelming place. We're living in times that many of us cannot understand, and we wonder what to do. Now, on the night after the 2016 election, there was a band from Russia playing right here in Madison, and someone before the show asked them a question, and they decided to answer it during the show. They said, "We were asked, what do we do? We are entering a new era in our country that we do not understand. You, in your own country, have dealt with oppression. What do we do?" Their answer was, act locally. Take care of your local communities. Love those around you, those you know, those you don't know. Look around you. Who can you help? Who can you touch? Who can you care for? The Reverend Don Cooley wrote that loving this world means constantly expanding who we are. This means challenging ourselves to not turn away from the pain within ourselves and within others. Loving the hell out of this world means loving each other out of hell. It means listening, learning from one another, helping each other. It doesn't mean we will always agree, but it means we will stay in conversation because our mission is the same, even if our politics or theology are different. It means overcoming fear, bitterness, and hatred with abounding and embodied love. Our shared vision is one in which we love one another out of suffering, out of injustice. It is the Universalist vision we hold within us. It is why we side with love. May we leave here today with the call to love this world and everything in it with all we've got. The terrain is far too dangerous for us to do anything else. And I now invite you into the giving and receiving of today's offering. Our outreach offering recipient is the Native Vote Project. You can find out more about them in the order of service and also at the table in the Commons. We thank you for your generosity. We appreciate the many gifts of those who helped our service this morning. Our greeters were artists Kaufman and Joan Heitman. Ushers, Judy Troyes, Sam Bates, and Mark Hill. Our hymn accompanist is Linda Warren, and our song leader, Drew Collins. On sound is Mark Schultz, and hospitality is being provided by Richard DeVita and Jeannie Hills. Our lay minister is Ann Smiley. And I believe John Powell is here as our tour guide. If you're interested in a tour, please come on up front after the service. We have one opportunity to let you know about today, and that's to please join us for our partner church open house after the service at 1 o'clock in courtyard rooms A, B, and C. There will be delicious Hungarian desserts, photos and stories of our partner church in Nagyoita in Romania, and we would love to share all of it with you. I invite you now to rise in body or spirit for our closing hymn, number 300.
With heart and mind and voice and hand, may we this time and place transcend to make our purpose understood. A mortal search for mortal good, a firm commitment to the goal of justice, freedom, peace for all. A mind that's free to seek the truth, a mind that's free in age and youth, to choose a path no threat impedes, wherever light of conscience leads. Our martyrs died so we could be a church where every mind is free. A heart that's kind, a heart whose search makes love the spirit of our church, where we can grow and each one's gift is sanctified and spirits lift, where every door is open wide for all who choose to step inside.
Go in hope, for the arc of the universe is long, and we can bend it toward justice. Go in courage, for together we have the strength to confront the injustice in our daily lives and the larger world. Go in love, because a holy and generous love, the love that lives in each and every one of us, is both the reason and the means by which we transform our lives and our world. We extinguish our chalice, but not the light of love and the warmth of this community, those we carry with us until we meet again. Blessed be, go in peace, and please be seated for the postlude.